Chapter 11. The Brontosaurus pulled leaves off the trees and was offering them to Lulu. She grabbed them and threw them away angrily. A simple "no thank you" will do, the Brontosaurus said to Lulu, and I really liked that "please" you used before. So please, 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 let me please go home, Lulu yelled. Your yelling is hurting my ears, said the dinosaur, but I have to admit that even if you had asked me softly and sweetly, I still would want to keep you here with me. I've been lonely, and a pet is a very good thing. For hours and hours and hours, from early morning till just past noon, Lulu kept telling the Brontosaurus he had to let her go home, and the Brontosaurus kept telling Lulu no. He also kept assuring her that he'd do his absolute best to make her happy. He spoke in such a kind and nice and polite and patient voice that after a while Lulu was talking, not yelling. And after a while she was talking softly and sweetly. And pretty soon after that, she started to cry. Yes, Lulu started to cry, and it wasn't very often that Lulu cried. She'd rather screech till the light bulbs burst and all of that other stuff, but right now she didn't feel screechy. She felt teary, and so she cried and cried and cried, soaking the Brontosaurus with her tears. He patiently waited as Lulu continued soaking him and the forest floor with her tears. He patiently waited some more, and then he said, I'm sorry I'm making you cry, little pet, but I won't be changing my mind. Would you like a tissue? Lulu now understood that no matter how hard she cried and how nice this dinosaur was, he was determined to keep her as his pet. And she now understood that if she was determined to not be his pet, she would have to escape. She cried just a little bit longer, but while she was crying on the outside, she was on the inside making a getaway plan. Sniffing a watery sniff, Lulu said to the Brontosaurus, Thank you, Mr. B. I do need some tissues. If you'll just let me down on the forest floor for a minute, I am sure I can find a box of them in my suitcase. The Brontosaurus lowered his head and his neck to the floor of the forest. Lulu stood up, and smiled a small smile. She walked to her suitcase, opened it, poked around for a while, and found, are you surprised, a big box of tissues. Instead of taking the tissues out, she put her sleeping bag in, snapped her suitcase shut, and started running. The Brontosaurus stood stiff and still, as if he'd been glued to the ground. And then he started running after Lulu, but Lulu had darted off the path into the heart of the forest, into a part of the forest where the trees grew so close together that a creature as huge as this dinosaur could not fit. She zigged and she zagged and she zigged and she zagged through those close together trees while the Brontosaurus looked for spaces to squeeze through. He was trying his hardest to catch her, as hard as a mountain-sized creature can try, but she was leaving him farther and farther behind. Come back, little pet, come back! Lulu could hear him calling, first loudly, then softer and softer. Come back, little pet. I know you'll be happy with me. Come back, little pet. His voice grew even softer, and soon she could not hear his voice any more. Since Lulu could not hear his voice any more, she stopped running and started walking. She tromped through the forest in silence, heading for home. But she wasn't swinging her suitcase, and she wasn't singing her song, and although she very much wanted to see her mom and her dad again, and very much wanted not to be a pet, she felt kind of bad about the Brontosaurus. And so do I, because even though I'm the person writing this story, I don't like leaving him all alone, sadly calling, Come back, little pet, come back. Chapter 12. But then, after maybe an hour, Lulu suddenly heard a different voice, a not so friendly voice, saying, Hold it right there. And standing up on his two hind legs, and blocking her path through the forest stood the black bear she had stomped on yesterday. You hold it right there, said Lulu, and please. There was that P word again. Don't keep shaking your clawy paws at me. If I have to stomp you, I'll stomp you. But I'd really rather not stomp you. I'd rather. She opened her suitcase and took out a jar of golden honey. Give you this. If you'll please get out of my way. What's going on with Lulu? She'd rather not stomp him? The bear took the jar of honey, opened the top, dipped in his paw, and slurpily licked it, mumbling something that sort of sounded like thank you. Dipping and licking and slurping, he hurried out of Lulu's path, and she continued tromping through the forest until another not too friendly voice said, "This time I'm eating you before you bonk me." And there was the tiger, the silky, slinky tiger of yesterday, ready to pounce on her. "Forget the eating and bonking," said Lulu, "and try on this beautiful scarf." She pulled a long, floaty, bright green scarf from her suitcase. "It matches your eyes, and I'll give it to you if you'll please get out of my way." And the tiger, happily wrapping the eye-matching scarf around her black and orange striped neck, growled something that sounded like a thank you and slunk away. And Lulu continued tromping through the forest until, well, what do you think she met next? A wolf? A giraffe? A lion? Don't be ridiculous. Of course, she met what else? The snake, who was hissing an even nastier hiss than he'd hissed the day before, and warning her, "This time I'll be the tighter squeezer." Lulu, looking disgusted, told him, "Nobody's squeezing anybody. All I'm doing is getting home today." Then she reached in her suitcase and pulled out a small flowered rug and explained to the snake, "This is for you, if you'll please get out of my way. A soft rug to rest on whenever you feel like resting." The snake took the rug in his mouth and tried, at least I think he tried, to say thank you, Lulu, though it's hard to tell when a mouth is full of rug. In any case, he went slithering off wherever a snake goes slithering, and Lulu continued tromping through the forest.